I have a toddler and an infant, and they don't play video games yet, but if they're anything like their old man, they will very soon. I was only like 7 or 8 when Ocarina of Time came out, which for me sparked the lifelong obsession with video games I had, and that might happen to them soon too. In the late 1990s, when I was growing up, the best-selling and most popular games of that generation were games like Ocarina of Time and GoldenEye, Pokemon Blue, Red, Yellow, Banjo-Kazooie, Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64. Damn, it was a good time to be a Nintendo fan back then. Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid, and more masterpieces that are still widely considered to be some of, if not the greatest games of their respective genres to this day. Now, if my kids were to jump into video games today, nowadays, they'd be playing very different games. The highest selling games and most popular games nowadays are multiplayer-centric battle royales with endless microtransactions. Games like Call of Duty, FIFA, Fortnite, Roblox, Rocket League, 2K, Madden. Maybe I'm just getting old, but I feel like kids nowadays, and you know what? I just said kids nowadays, so I'm automatically very old. Oh well, kids nowadays just don't have the protagonists and characters we did when we were kids, which is really what got me so hooked onto video games. Connecting with these pixelated, polygonal main characters and bad guys that made these low-resolution worlds come to life and make me feel like I wanted to live in these games. Think Link, Cloud Strife, Ash Ketchum, the Master Chief, Banjo and Kazooie, Leon Kennedy, Jill Valentine, Albert Wesker, Tony Hawk. The list goes on, and really, this is what I think when I think back to the heart and soul of these games. Part of me kind of feels sad for young gamers right now who think that winning at Fortnite or having the highest KD ratio of the match is the ultimate gaming high, which, don't get me wrong, I put in hundreds of hours into online multiplayer shooters and I'm old enough to have gone to LAN parties. But what about that feeling when you were Link in Ocarina of Time and you first arrived at Hyrule Field? And the music kicks in, and even though all you have are a tiny little dagger barely long enough to be respectably called a sword, and a little slab of tree bark as your only shield against the wild unknown, despite all that, you feel like you're gonna save the freaking world as a little lonely kid who never got his own favorite like the rest of the village kids. Or how about playing as Ash Ketchum and right when you leave the safety and comfort of your mom's house in Pallet Town, without so much as a sandwich for lunch to start your lifelong adventure, you're thrust into your first random encounter and you and Bulbasaur are scared but determined, and you just barely beat the Weedle and you survive the encounter. A little damaged, but a little stronger too. And you realize that through enough training and discipline, you could become the greatest Pokemon trainer in the world? I mean, damn. That's what I think of when I think back to playing video games when I was a kid. I don't know what my kids' friends will be playing in elementary school, but I really can't say I'm that inspired by the current gaming landscape for young kids. I think there's a reason there are communities like Dr. K's Healthy Gamer channel, where he helps parents help their kids with real-life video game addictions. In part because so many of the most popular games for young kids nowadays are so heavily monetized, so full of manipulative microtransactions, and are created more to build a higher yielding monetization model than to just be really freaking great game. And honestly, I'm gonna be very careful with what I let my kids play when they get to that age. It might be a bias, but honestly, I'd feel way more comfortable knowing my kids are playing games I've already paid full price for, with no microtransactions and hence no incentive for publishers to encourage players to spend more money. If my young kids ever came to me and asked to download this great new free-to-play game, I'd already have a bad feeling about it. Not because these games are necessarily bad, but because once the game publishers have an incentive to monetize through other means, that makes me nervous as a dad of young gamers. Which brings me to the old school games, the retro ones. Which at first I thought retro was like Space Invaders and Pong, but damn, retro games could mean games from like the 2000s, which that makes me feel very old. But that being said, there are so many classic retro games I hope my kids play someday, games I played. These are games I will buy full price for them again. These are games I'll watch them play. I love for them to play with their friends. I want to play with them myself. And while there are dozens and dozens I can mention here are just 5 retro games I hope my kids play someday. And kids, if you're watching this, just hit me up. I'll buy them for you full price, no problem. Love you. There will never be another experience like Pokemon for me. And I can only hope my kids will one day experience this themselves. And you know, at the rate Pokemon's going, there's a good chance their craze will still be pretty strong when they're 10 years old like I was. Pokemon is more than just a video game. It's more than just Saturday morning cartoons. It's more than just trading cards. The mutual obsession every other kid in the freaking world had with this franchise back then, it was more than just one thing. It was all so magical and wonderful and precious. And after watching the show and playing through Pokemon Blue, I wanted to live in a world full of Pokemon so bad it hurt. I would have done anything to actually be Ash Ketchum and catch Pokemon, explore the world, fight my way through gym battles, and become the #1 trainer in the whole universe. Nothing would have stopped me. The soundtrack is among the most iconic video game soundtracks of all time. The battle theme, the opening sequence, each individual town's music all comes crashing into your ears with a critical hit of nostalgia and memories that is super effective. Sorry. I know there will probably be dozens of different Pokemon games available for my kids when they're older, but nothing can compare to the first, when there was just 150 Pokemon and a secret 151st one. When Pokemon movies were in theaters and you got a special cool holographic Mewtwo card for going. When bringing an actual Pikachu card to school instantly catapulted you into being the coolest kid in the freaking zip code. I hope my kids can experience this. How intense the battles felt in the games, how massive the world felt when you were 8 years old and playing it, how magical it felt when you got it on Game Boy, watched it on TV, and talked about that Butterfree episode with your friends. You guys know what I'm talking about. Buying booster packs and hoping you get a cool random first edition card. Man. Truly one of the greatest gaming trends of the 90s. The video game that got me completely obsessed with video games was The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening for Game Boy Color. But the video game that solidified this obsession for the rest of my life was The Legend of Zelda: Oracle of Ages. This game is so weird. It's a time-traveling spin-off of the Zelda franchise where Link isn't saving Zelda from Ganondorf in Hyrule, but fighting some weird sorcerer named Vati in the kooky land of Labrynna. I must have watched this opening sequence 100 times. It's like I couldn't skip it when I booted up the game. More than Link's Awakening, this game made me fall through the screen and become Link every single freaking time. I was 10 when this game came out. Not old enough to be strong enough to save anybody, but old enough to want to try. And Oracle of Ages gave me a proxy to do that. To wander through a dangerous world full of monsters. A world turned upside down by an evil sorceress. Where you had to travel through time and help people and creatures across generations to save the kingdom from utter ruin and despair. Man, I love this game so freaking much. Looking back, what made me love it so much was obvious. It was how it made me feel. All my parents could afford to buy me was a Game Boy Color, and with 3 other siblings, it's not a lot of money, my Game Boy Color and this video game were my main escape for a long time. Zelda games were so full of lore, of weird characters, and best of all, this game connected with its sister game, Oracle of Seasons, which my parents bought for my younger brothers. My brothers and I got really close to these games, trading our cartridges and getting these really cool secret unlockable treasures from transferring one game save file to the next. Man, Nintendo was really on point with these double release connected game strategy. I miss those days. We bought the strategy guide and studied through every single page until my brothers and I 100%ed both games. I took this game with me everywhere. I remember one time my mom getting mad at me for making us so late to see my cousin's graduation because I was at the final boss of the game and I knew that my batteries were about to die and I couldn't save, and if the batteries were die I would lose my progress. So I just kept telling her like, 1 more minute, I'm almost done when I finish beating the boss in the back of the car. Man, I want my kids to have these memories too. To play a video game that's not some mindless looter shooter with battle passes and microtransactions that won't stand the test of time. A game that is an instant classic, full of heart, character, and a soundtrack that plays perfectly for any 10-year-old's dreams and visions of becoming a hero and saving those they love and facing their fears and overcoming the monsters along the way. I want to buy my son and daughter each their own Game Boy Color, one with Oracle of Ages and the other with Oracle of Seasons, so that they can have a little taste of what it felt like to be me, 10 years old in 2001, and creating some of the most precious video game memories I have, so that they can create their own memories to tell their own kids someday. When I was a kid, besides video games, basketball was my thing. I played on competitive teams all throughout my childhood and even eventually just barely squeaked up to the high school team before getting cut my third year. But what poured fuel on this fire for years and years for me? NBA Streets. This came out back in the heyday of the street ball hype and with the N1 mixtape tour, and all that took the basketball world by storm and inspired all of us players to try and learn all these flashy cool moves ourselves. I played the crappity crap out of these NBA Street games. I took time to study the coolest looking moves and I practiced them myself on the court down the street. Then I'd try and do them in games during our middle school lunch hour. All my friends and I would try and make our own cool basketball moves, and I'm a bit embarrassed to admit, we had our own names. We dubbed ourselves with really cool, cringy sounding names like the Captain. Oh man, yeah, it was a very cringy time for us middle schoolers. But NBA Street was the rare video game that inspired me to take real actions outside of the game, to practice moves I saw, to do what the characters did, and I began to see real results. I mean, I got better at basketball. I was learning the lingo of the sport, and I was kind of just part of this new cultural movement in the sport. I was connected with other basketball fans playing the same games as me. It was a lot more than just a video game. I hope my kids play sports someday, and I had dreams of even being their coach, hopefully for basketball. That'd be cool. And I'd be absolutely thrilled if my kids could play NBA Street when they're first thinking about actually getting good at a sport and then seeing all the fun, dumb, ridiculous moves their dad spent months practicing so he could show off to his friends in middle school. Damn, this game hit me hard. It hit everyone hard. It inspired a whole generation to pick up a board and try and do a kickflip. Easily the best game in the skating genre and the game that started it all. I played the crap out of this game too. I played the crap out of all these games. And it was one of the main reasons I actually wanted to and eventually did become a decent skater for most of my life. This game had it all. Incredible soundtracks, none of which I can play without getting copyright claims. Ridiculous stages with sky-high grind rails and half pipes as tall as a skyscraper, dopamine-inducing physics mechanics, and a cultural connector for anyone growing up in the 90s and 2000s. Another instance of a video game that truly impacted my real life outside the game, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater inspired me to learn something new and not give up when it was hard. I even had the Game Boy Color version, remember that one? Where I learned all the names of the essential tricks like a varial, and a tray flip, and a pop shove it, and so on. The day my kids ask me for a skateboard, I'm dropping whatever I'm doing, driving to the nearest mall, and getting them a sick-ass starter board, and probably getting them pretty cool with me too. I know I'm risking broken wrists and scuffed knees and maybe even a concussion or two for me and them, but Tony Hawk's Pro Skater taught me firsthand how freaking awesome skating could be, the freedom and creativity and flow states that simply cruising down the street on your board could give you, and I truly hope it inspires my kids to pick up a board too. Horror games are a bit like spicy food. People who don't like spicy food see people who do and ask, why are you eating that? Doesn't that hurt? Do you like being in pain? Doesn't that ruin the food for you? Well, the same logic can kind of be said of horror games to people that don't like horror games. They ask, do you like being scared? Don't you get nightmares? Why would you want that for yourself? The thing is, I love spicy food, and recently I've come to love some horror games. Being a little scaredy cat growing up, it was a genre I stayed well away from. But Resident Evil 4 was the game that got me into horror games and made me realize just how much fun playing horror games can really be. Resident Evil 4, the original one, is commonly cited as not just one of the best Resident Evils, not just one of the best horror games, but to many, one of the best freaking video games of all time. It was an instant classic and set the franchise and the genre up for years to come, creating a perfect balance of horror and action with world-class gameplay, third-person shooting mechanics, and survival horror elements like ammo conservation, risk versus reward exploration, and the best damn writing of any horror game of all time. I want my kids to experience this firsthand. But maybe not until they're older. I don't want to ruin horror games for them forever by terrifying them too early. But for me, this became one of my favorite video games of all time. I pre-ordered the remake and I immediately started playing a New Game Plus once I beat it. I'm going to continue playing both these for the rest of my life, the remake and the original. And I want my kids to experience what it feels like to be Leon Kennedy and to traverse through a scary, interesting, deadly, hilarious, crazy world full of zombies and monsters and tiny evil bad guys who recreate giant stone Gundam versions of themselves. That's a real thing. Resident Evil 4 can help people love horror games because the game gives you so much agency, opportunity, and excitement throughout the entire campaign. It's an excellent gateway into the world of more pure horror games like Resident Evil 7 and Dead Space that are pretty tough to get into without some kind of warm-up first. At least that's how it was for me. For me, I want my kids to love Leon as much as I did and to use that experience to see just how damn fun horror games could be. Growing up, you might have had the opportunity to be around people that love video games as much as you, but for me, it was definitely a rarity in my little circle of friends and family that people liked video games. I was like the only one. And once I got my hands on my very own lime green Game Boy Color and popped in Link's Awakening, it was all over for me. I was going to play for the rest of my life. But for most other people, video games were fun and all, but there was more to do. For me, they were like the number one source of fun, entertainment, and excitement when it comes to having fun. I don't know if my kids will feel the same way. When I was growing up in the 90s and 2000s, it seemed like every other month brought us an instant classic, a foundational, genre-defining game that would eat up every spare hour you had to game. From 1994 to 2001, think about this. All the following games came out. Final Fantasy VII, Resident Evil, Ocarina of Time, Super Metroid, Halo, Sonic 3, Super Mario 64, Metal Gear Solid, Mario Kart 64. I mean, you name almost any video game genre, JRPGs, horrors, kart racers, platformers, FPSs, whatever, and there's like a 95% chance that one of, if not the best game of that genre released during that time period. When I was growing up, I've lived through some absolutely incredible gaming years and experiences, and they've defined so many of my most cherished and fond memories of spending time with my brothers and friends and my wife nowadays. And I'm gonna be one of those old retired dudes playing the crap out of their PS10 when it comes out in 30 years. But I'm so grateful I grew up in the 90s and 2000s before the internet. Back then, gaming was all about strategy guides and asking your friends how to beat some boss you just couldn't beat, using game charts for cheat codes, and when co-op just meant playing on the couch together. My kids will undoubtedly have a very different experience than me. They might not even like video games that much. But in any case, I want them to at least play some of these old retro games that so inspired their old man to become a lifelong lover of video games. Thanks for watching. And if you want to watch more content like this, be sure to click that subscribe button.